Hey, everybody, welcome back to Advanced Kayak Angler Podcast. With me tonight, I have the other host of Bass Kayak and Beers, Armando Sola. What's up, dude?
Alex, what's going on, buddy? It's
Not
great to
much,
see you,
man.
man.
Yeah. You had a pretty good weekend. My weekend, dude, I went to a place, I practiced weekend before last, and I did pretty good. I had because 3 fish limit, I had like 52, 53, somewhere right in there, which for that lake I thought would be pretty close to winning. Ended up taking 54 this last Saturday. Dude, I went to the same place, caught over 50 fish, like easily. I know I've caught 50 bass before. I'm talking just bass.
What in one day?
Yeah, it's probably
God,
the most bass I've ever caught in one day from a
I
kayak.
bet.
Yeah, it was. I mean, but all of them were tiny. I had a 16 flop off the board. Only a second time ever happened to me. Um, but yeah, it just, and I saw the fish because it was real shallow too. So I saw plenty of good fish. It was just one of those things, right place, caught all the fish, just not the right bite sometimes, or like some tournaments you leave it and it's like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that.
Yeah,
I
I
got,
feel you.
I, yeah, I feel like I was right place, right time, doing the right thing, caught all the fish. I just didn't get the right bite. So different. I tried different, bigger baits, and maybe I should have went really big, but most of them were spots, Alabama bass. So I didn't really want to go too big because I can't get it. Um, yeah. So I don't know. Whatever. So yeah, dude, come on, you fish Possum Kingdom, Bassmaster.
Bassmaster Kayak Series, yo.
Yeah, man. Tell me about it. How did it go? I got to bring up the
Um,
winners here. I didn't even do it.
the what?
The
You gotta
winners.
bring. Oh yeah, man. That lake showed out. Texas strong, buddy. You got 4 of the top 5 local boys
Yeah.
here from Texas. My peeps protecting the house.
Yeah, Texas would be great if you didn't have to live in Texas.
Hey, now.
No, I'm kissing. I'm kidding.
Nah, I love Texas, man.
Oh,
I never thought when I moved to Texas I would enjoy Texas as much as I have, but
yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
I agree. I was stationed there for more than 3 years. I mean, you know, it was good. I was in Abilene most of it though. I was in San Antonio in training, basic training, then some of tech school, and that sucked. And then the rest of the time I was in Abilene, which it's Abilene. Maybe if I were in a better place, which Abilene's okay. Looking back at it, I think as an adult, it was actually really surprisingly fun because it's a college town,
Yeah,
which wouldn't. Yeah, it's got ACU, Hardin Simmons, or Abilene Chris. Yeah, ACU, Abilene Christian, Hardin Simmons. So it was a good time for to be a young man. Uh, that was a lot of fun. If I could go, I'll bet you Abilene's probably a pretty nice place to live in.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, a lot
here
of
I'll
places.
I'll go over the results here. First
Oh,
place, Michael Cates. Day one, he had 109 3/4. Day two,
it's
100 and a
amazing.
half. Total 210 1/4. Joe Camarano.
Camarano,
Camarano.
yep,
Yeah,
Camarano.
there, Camarano.
There
Uh,
you go.
99 1/4. Day one, 102 3/4. Total of 202. And Marty Hughes, the professor, with a 97 3/4 and then 98 1/4. Matt Scotch, that guy in Texas, like peas and carrots, 97 1/2 and 93 1/2 for 191 out. Go ahead and round out fifth. Matthew Flett for
Matthew Flett.
93. Huh?
Matthew Flett's another great angler here. A lot of
Is
people
it?
don't know about.
Gotcha. 97 1/2 for 190 1/2. My boy Nick Dyer in seventh place. He's killing it this year. Um, Barry Davis, Christine,
Christine, man,
Siddiqui.
68th place to 13th place. Christine Fisher.
Heck yeah.
That is a winning attitude. Let me tell you something.
Yeah,
I
heck
was
yeah.
really impressed by that.
The best anglers usually do better a second day.
Yeah, that's not me. I always struggle on second day. I don't know why.
Oh, you suck.
I
No, I'm
know.
kidding.
I
How
know.
do you do though? You were like
I
middle of the pack though, right?
Yeah, I was middle on the pack on
Yeah.
day after day one, day two, and goes back to winning attitude, and that's something that for the most part, I just do this Bass Masters tournament or even Hobie BOS national trails. as more of a measuring stick. Like how do I rank, compared to other people, and also get the opportunity to learn and kind of get better because iron shapers, iron shape. Oh my god,
Sharpens.
sharpens. My Puerto Rican side is coming out.
Mm,
Um, Iron sharpens iron. So in order to get better, you have to associate or on at least on the water and even socially with anglers that are better than you.
that's
Um,
right.
and I started this like my friends that got me into kayak fishing. Life, uh, got in the way, and now they have family, kids, and they don't even go fishing. Well, one of them still does. Shout out to Arnie who got me on my first kayak. But he has a bass boat now, and it's more because he have kids, and it's easier to have the kids on the bass boat than it is on a kayak, of course. But
I got my kid a kayak. That's how I did it.
well, the kids are like five, they're like 5 and 6. So, anyways, uh, that's neither here or there. But the point is, I had nobody to kind of help me out. It's YouTube, Fluke Master, Tactical Bassing, and all those guys, and that
Hoover.
time on the water, but it was just like me just trying to figure it out. And I figured one of the ways is kind of go out on tournaments. Now it is expensive, it's national trails, so you
Yeah.
have to think of it as an investment. But one thing that I kind of learned from this, and I'm proud of this one, for a lot of reasons that I get into. But one of the things that I need to get better at, it has at some point this has to become transition from okay, I'm learning to okay, from this point on, I need to start seeing checks or, start getting better at it and get into actually not just middle of the pack, but maybe the upper echelon, even if I don't win.
Yeah.
Um, and it has to come consistently, but that comes a lot of it with the winning attitude. Talking about Christine Fisher, at 60, what is that?
PMA. Positive mental attitude.
There you go. Um, it when you think about it, I was on after day one, I was ahead of a bunch of big names. Not that I'm saying that I'm better than them, but I was ahead of Christine, ahead of I think I was ahead of Guillermo. I was ahead of some of the big names, and some of the less known names in the kayak fishing were actually at the top. And a lot of it like Michael Cates and Joe, and I don't know if they fished that lake before, but they're from Texas, so there is some sort of home field advantage, I would say.
Yeah.
And again, maybe they've never fished that lake before. I really don't know. Matthew Scotch, I know, has, and I'm not surprised he did well. That doesn't take anything away from his talent because Matthew Scotch has won in and out of Texas. So does Guillermo Gonzalez and all that. But even guys like Guillermo Gonzalez, who's one of the best out there, and is in his backyard. I was doing right there in the mix. But then day two, I was more like, all right, well, the pressure's off. I'm just gonna kind of like have fun and try new things and all that, which I'm sure it's very different from what Christine Fisher probably, and I haven't spoken to her, maybe through text, but not in depth about her moving up from 68 to 13th. But I'm sure her mindset was like, game on, as challenge accepted. I'm gonna do my best, and she did 102 inches. I actually caught three. A lot of it was because I met up with Pete from My Chaotic Fishing, which I follow him on social media. He follows me, but we never actually met. I went to a boat ramp. He was the only one there. Well, then two other people showed up. Um, it was the same boat ramp that Mark Pendergraph had won the national, uh, and so I thought
I
that
guess they
boat
weren't
ramp.
on the boat ramp anymore, huh?
I thought that the what now?
I guess they weren't on the boat ramp this year,
No,
huh?
I thought yeah, I know. And I thought that boat ramp was going to be crowded as heck. Turns out only 4 people on day two, and I didn't even go on day one. And the
Mm.
people that I think Mark Pendergraph was there on day one, but he didn't do that well. That creek, I think it was just sore lip. But I ended up going there. Um, I met up with I accidentally or kind of run into Pete from My Chaotic Fishing, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to? I'm going to check out the other side of it. Do you want to? He didn't want to kind of go by himself. So like, sure, what the heck? I don't think I'm gonna so my attitude was like, yeah, sure, let's have fun. Let's have fun out there. We're probably both not going to be in the money. So, and that goes back to, winning attitude. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I would have ended up in 13th place, but the possibility
Yeah, you
When you
weren't
think
you
about it, I
weren't
was 56, she was
Possum
68.
Kingdom. It was possible.
Yeah, it was possible, but I just didn't have that mental attitude. And I actually had caught two nice ones before we decided to, like, hey, let's get out of here and try new waters, new lakes. And again, we weren't cooperating or, trying to, we were just like two guys out there having fun, trying new baits and new things. It became more of like, I'm going to take this opportunity to explore the waters of the lakes, enjoy the lake, and see if I can catch him on tactics and areas that are out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's not a winning attitude. So at some point, that for me has to change if I'm going to continue to do this. At some point, I have to just kind of flip the switch on that. Not saying that I'm going to have success, but just have a winning mentality. Going. This is not just now for going out and meeting some of the great guys and girls on the sport and learning from them. It has to be like, okay, now I'm here to compete against, and I'm here to try to take your money, kind of
I
thing.
think
And
I hear what you're saying. And I totally agree. I think I'm so far on the other end that it prevents me from having fun at a lot of tournaments too. Like I remember whenever we did the paddle, I went to the paddle and fin deal, like up on Dale Hollow, and I was fishing the tournament. I had never been there before. I got one day of practice. I went out and did pretty good. And I was so hardcore about going to bed early and waking up early and being prepared and all my gear and everything else that I missed out on all the fun that everybody else had.
that's true.
Like I know people like, people like to go out to the bar and stuff like that. I'm older too. I'm 44, so it's not really fair because whenever I was 18 to 23, I absolutely would have been in the, 21 to whenever I would have been in the bar and having fun, and it
Yeah.
would have been hard to get up early. I mean, so it comes with age too, but yeah, there's a
No, and
line there. There's a line there too.
yeah, and it's it's there's no right way or wrong way in the sense that, hey, if for me, I'm happy doing that. I'm happy donating $250 to the cause that I'm
Yeah,
never gonna see back because I enjoy it. I enjoy the camaraderie. Um, I kind of on this one, and partially my fault. I did, the captain's meeting now is not what it used to be. It's not like at least in Bassmaster, it's not like in Hobie. It's now where it's like, yeah, just check your board and you can leave, and we're just gonna do the whole media thing for the sponsors and all that. So there's hardly anybody
that
at the
does sound.
captain's meeting. So I don't get to see all the faces, and the ones that show up are just kind of check their boards. They're all about business and leave. Not all of them. Um, and I had that mentality too. I was like, man, I miss this, but I miss hanging around with the guys and the girls and talking about fishing and all that.
Yeah,
But at the same time, not a lot of people are doing it, so I'm not going to be the only one doing this. So let's just go home and start prepping, which has the advantage is I can get up, go to bed early and all that. Um, but that is, if that's why you're doing it, which is kind of what I'm doing it right now, kind of I enjoy it. You
hmm
just have to have realistic expectations. Now, I've also stayed in the house in the last three Hobie BOS events with Rolando Nandin, who's the consummate professional. Rolando Landin is always, when we talk about strategy and all that, he always goes by what does the rule book say? Let's make sure we are doing things the right way. When we talk about, hey, how do you found it? Well, can we talk about it? And me and Danny were like, sure, dude. It's like we're not the tournament doesn't start until tomorrow. So it's like let's just check the rule. He's always has a winning mentality. And
yeah,
I've learned a lot from him, and that rub, like I said, iron sharpens iron. Staying in the same household with guys that are like. I remember the last time I was like, hey, what beers do you guys want me to bring? I'll bring a case of beers. Kind of. They're like, nah, dude, we are here to compete. Just bring water and Gatorade. So it's like, oh, okay. I mean, so it's different aspects of it, and I miss kind of. I'm like, I think I'm training in like transitioning from one to the other. From like, hey, guys, girls trip to go fishing and hang out with your friends and have a good time, have a couple of beers, go fishing. To like, okay, it's game time. So I'm somewhere in between those, and I'm thinking of now more and more. I'm going to like, okay, at some point this has to stop just being donating money and just go out there and compete. and it starts with the winning mentality.
Yeah. I have you ever won a tournament?
I've come close,
Come
though,
close.
and that's the other thing. The closest I've gotten to winning was in Lake Fork, and I came second to Mark Pendergraph, which a lot of people know him as a Possum King. Turns out Mark Pendergraph's a lot tougher on Lake Fork than he is on Possum King,
Mm,
on Possum Kingdom. That's where he's won more tournaments. So, if you think he's a Possum King, you should see what he's able to do in Lake Fork. And I came in second. I think he beat me at the last hour. But that goes back that tournament, and I think I talked about this on my podcast before. So it was a Slay Nation tournament. So I had some membership fees, and the group of guys that we go, uh, Matt Wallace, Matt Biles, Gary Peck, Corey Geisen Ford, Jerry McCormick. Well, just a group of dudes who like fishing, have a couple of beers, go to the bar afterwards. Like that's really fun, and
yeah.
talk about our day. So to me, there was really no competitive side to it. It was just kind of like a good excuse to get together with the guys, people that I have, a ton of respect for, and just go fish. Like I wasn't intimidated by fishing. Not that they're not great, but I wasn't like feeling like intimidated fishing to my Biles because I never saw him as a competitor. I saw him as a friend. Matt Wallace, Corey Geisel, all the names that I've just mentioned. So on that Slay Nation tournament, they instead of having a membership, they left it open just that day. So I get to the boat, so the captain's meeting, which was the way Slay Nation does it. It's like at 5 a.m. You have to stop and get your board check, and I see Brian Howell, who was leading in the standings of the Hobie BOS
Yeah.
Angler of the Year late in the year. So he had a real shot of winning it. And Mark Pendergraph, fresh from winning the Bassmaster National Championship in Powson Kingdom. And my first thought is like, what are these guys doing here taking our money? Like, how much, why are they here? I kind of got a little pissed off. I'm like, why are they here? But at some point, while I was waiting to get my board check, I'm like, screw this, game on. This is going to be my shot. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to beat Mark Pendergraph and I'm going to beat Brian Howell. And I say that with the utmost respect,
Oh yeah,
as
yeah,
an admiration. Not that I have
yeah.
any competitive, not that I think I'm best of them. It's just, it switched. And that day, I had a purpose. Like, I was like, I am coming. My mentality was, I'm going to beat these guys.
I
And I
promise
came
that
up second.
they had the same mentality. I mean, they were going out there
I
to
hope
beat
so. I
you.
want to beat them
Yeah.
at their best.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was my best day out there on the water. And I, that was my first time actually catching 5 fish, and I was doing stuff that I've never done. I was flipping on heavy grass that I've never done. That's when my last 2 fish were caught. So I was like, it. You have to. I think we were talking about the video that Christine Fisher put of the $20,000 kayaks.
Yeah.
And it comes with that. You have to stop thinking about what the other person has. You have to stop thinking, oh my God, I got 2 pros here on my little, grassroots club. How am I supposed to, compete against this guy? And you just have to cherish the opportunity to like, okay, this is a great opportunity to say I bit this guy's. I ended up second. I was proud of that.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
So
I think, and the reason I ask that is I think like success in tournaments, like it's almost like you get a taste of it. You understand the mindset that you need to be into, and then it kind of starts to snowball.
yeah,
Like, it's like you gain momentum, and once you get that momentum going, it keeps going. I mean, like, until you hit a dry streak again. But yeah, I guess that's why I was saying, like, you're seeing the need to be more focused on the tournament than the hang.
yeah,
And I think as soon as you do that and you get more success, it'll breed even more success, is
yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
And also don't get like down on yourself or quit. Like to like Possum Kingdom was the perfect example. From 58, from 56, I was like, yeah, I don't really got a shot, so I'll just go have fun. And here goes Christine Fisher, 68, 12 positions below me, and ends up 13. And it just makes me wonder, like, what if I would have? And I kind of don't regret it. I had a chance to hang out with Pete from My Chaotic Fishing. You can guys and girls that are listening to this, you can follow him at My Chaotic Fishing on Instagram. Great dude. We had a great time. We kind of fed off of each other without breaking any rules or anything like that. Um, so I had a great time, but it did make me wonder afterwards, like, man, what if I would have just said, "No, I'm going to concentrate on winning this, or on being having the biggest bag on day two," kind of thing.
Yeah.
You
It's
wouldn't have
same.
won.
I had same. Like I learned that lesson whenever I was in the military. Um, Me and this other guy went in pretty much the same time, and he studied for staff sergeant for the first time, and I didn't because I wasn't ready to put it on. And then I you still have to test and all that. I tried. I studied a little, not much, and he made it his first time, and I missed it by 6/10 of 1 point. So like, I was so close to making sergeant. I didn't even know I wanted it till he got it. Kind of like you and Christine, like he put in the effort and he got it, and then I realized, oh well, this is what I should have been doing. And yeah,
And it, and
I had that happen to me one time, and it really hurt.
and it goes back to the old saying in what's necessity is the mother of invention. I know that's
Hmm.
the term we use
Yeah,
in Spanish. I think we use it in
yeah,
English
that's
too.
right.
Which is like, for example, Christine Fisher. This is her job. This is a full time job. So when she goes out, she has to perform. If you don't perform, not that she has to win anything, but if your name is not out there consistently, you're not performing. People are not gonna watch your videos that much. You're not gonna be in the headlines as much. Sponsorship is gonna be harder to earn and stuff like that. So whereas I'm like, I'm just, I mean, I'm going with the mentality is like I'm going with $250 and I'm probably never going to see this money back kind of mentality,
Yeah,
Whereas the necessity to do well on tournaments to keep up that livelihood,
yeah,
breeds more, of a winning attitude or a competitive attitude versus somebody like myself that is like, I got my job. I mean, I'm not gonna lose my job over skunking on a tournament. I'm not
yeah,
gonna lose sponsorship because I don't have any. And the ones that I do have, well, Douglas rods, it's because of the podcast. They're not expecting me to win anything. They would love for me to win anything, and and show some love to them, but that's not what I'm sponsored. So um there's no risk involved other
yeah.
than the initial investment kind of thing.
So if somebody hasn't, like, since now you've been fishing at least a couple of national tournaments every year, and you fish big locals. Texas, y'all have like 100 people come out. Um,
Mhm.
like somebody who's getting into the national stuff, is there any advice you'd have for one of them if they're like somebody just getting into national tournaments? Like, what's any advice you'd give them for like their first tournament trying to get out there?
It's understand what you're getting in for, what you're doing this for. Because like I said, there's different reasons. When I started, I had no expectation of, competing for AOI or winning. I just wanted to the camaraderie, surround myself with people that are better than me at kayak fishing and kind of like learn from them, talk to them after. I don't talk to people before the tournament, ask them what they how they catching them, unless it's somebody I know and all that. Um, I don't go up to him during the tournament. I go after, and I'll ask him, hey, how did you caught and all that? Because obviously, the competing, they don't want to, give me information that potentially is going to cost them money. So I respect that. Um, but understand what you're getting it in for, and don't be intimidated. Don't think just because, and we can talk about the video that you and I both watched, the Christine Fisher talking about $20,000 kayaks.
Yeah,
Don't think of like don't think of yourself as inferior, whether it's because they're big names and you're not, or they have expensive equipment or fancy equipment that you have. It's just you and the fish. It's like for people that play golf, you never win at golf in the sense that you're never gonna do 18 holes, all holes in one, right?
yeah,
So you're never gonna reach it on. So there's no winning in bass in the sense that you're never gonna catch. the 5 biggest bass in that lake. You're just hoping that, and it's just between you and the bass. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. You can't
Yeah.
look at it that way. It's about you and what you're able to accomplish.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of advice, but that would save somebody. I mean, if you ask me one advice, that would be it.
There you go. So, all right. So let's talk about this video. Because I watched it today. I thought it was really interesting topics.
Yeah.
First, the live scope thing. Well, we'll talk about the $20,000 kayak, and kind of if you haven't watched the video, and we haven't talked about this beforehand, but whether you agree with it or disagree with it, either way, I think we can respectfully, if we either one of us do disagree, we can respectfully disagree. So, this isn't like she posted this and we're trying to rebut what she's saying, because I don't even know what maybe you're totally into what she said. I thought it was
For
an
the most part,
interesting
yeah.
topic and something worth talking about. So first of all, if you haven't already, subscribe to Christine's channel, watch her video. So what do you think about kind of her point was, and not to put words in her mouth, maybe this is the way I interpreted it, I'll say that, is that uh she sees people complain about a $20,000 kayak where her
Live scope
or
and all
other
that.
people say what?
That live scope pretty much was, yeah.
Yeah, and you can wrap
Or
those
first in
up
sonar,
together.
yeah.
Like the people that have the Hobie 360 with the 2 graphs, all the best equipment, rods, reels, line, baits, the whole deal. Some of it's paid for, whatever, trailer, truck, however far you want to go with it. Like all those things, like you can do it without those things, and it's not necessary to have that. And then if you go into it thinking that you're at a disadvantage, then you've already lost, I guess.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
No, the what I got from it, the gist of it, I'm simplifying it as bare to the bone again, not putting words like you said on Christine Fisher's mouth, but she's based my interpretation of what she said is like, stop whining about people that have live scope and 20,000 kayaks and grow up and go fishing. That's pretty much what I understood. That's as simplifying as I can put it. But basically, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything she said. Um, and again, for those that haven't watched the video, go watch it. It's on Christine Fisher's channel. Alpha, can you, while I talk, can you share it on the screen? I can put it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So the thing is, a lot of people complain about this quote unquote national trails PKA, professional kayak anglers, that have all this um, expensive equipment like forward facing sonar and all that, and that's how ruining the sport. I agree with her in the sense that it does. It's in your mindset. If you believe that it's bad for the sport, then nobody's going to convince you otherwise. It's just what you believe, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's the reality, and either you can stop competing.
Oh, didn't mean to play it here.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile can be
Oh
good.
Lord,
Are you seeing? You're putting Ryan Reynolds here. What are you doing?
I didn't mean to. I just
He's gone. So, anyways, while Dan Perry joins us back because he did something there, I think uh, what each one have to understand is live scope.
and then I kicked my
sonar.
damn self out of the whole podcast.
I just
I
kept
am-
talking.
How have I been doing it this long that I suck at it this bad? But it's called Our Live Scope and $20,000 kayaks hurting fishing. There you
Yeah.
go. Sorry.
So I think the reality is there are people that are not gonna fish tournaments, gonna be discouraged by this and all that. And in that sense, yes, it's hurting the sport, but on a grander scale, I think it is helping the sport. In the sense that you get more companies investing on this and all that. I will say this: you can still win a tournament and you can still win AOY without live scope. Jordan Marshall has won AOY, and before he got live scope and forward facing sonar, he just got it this year, and he's doing. I mean, I I don't want to speak for Jordan, but I don't think he's doing that great at his the last year. And I actually just had him on the podcast last week. People can check that episode out. We actually talk about that. That I mentioned to him, like, why did you ever decide to go with live school when you've been so successful and not even having a fish finder, a depth finder in your kayak? Like, you won AOY in the most competitive trail, the Hobie BOS. You won AOY of all, except for this past year, of all the Hobie TOCs that he's taking part of, he's finished, I think, no less than fifth, except for this one. And I think he just finished like eighth or something. I can't remember. So on the biggest tournaments, he's done well. On the biggest, most competitive trail, he's won AOY. So yes, it can be done. You can do it. However, it is going to get harder and harder as time goes on as this gets more popular, as more people start investing into this to win tournaments. I do agree with Christian Fisher. It's not going to work on all tournaments. You know, if you have a tournament that's, you know, where you're targeting spawning bass, live skill is probably not going to help you that much. It's probably not going to help you at all. And to give you an example, I went fishing with Caleb Conrad, who used to work for Douglas Watt. He moved here to Texas. He moved back to New York, but we went to Fairfield before they were closing up. And I told him, you just got to Texas. You need to fish Fairfield before they close this place up. And he was hell-bent on catching on live scope. He had his nice forward-facing sonar, and he was throwing that jerk bait. And it was fool's gold. He watched this bass just go up to his jerk bait, but they wouldn't commit to it. He spent like 3 hours doing that. We fished for like 10 hours. And I was killing it. I was throwing a Senko. I was throwing jigs, chatterbaits at areas where I would just look at the lay of the line. I'm like, okay, there's got to be a hole right there based on the topographical scenario that I had in front of me above water, which leads me to believe that area is deep. I caught a 22-inch bass, with my chatterbait, just pulling it through grass. I caught him at Senkos, just on reeds, and you can tell it was kind of getting to him that he has this super expensive, equipment, and I'm just beating him on just sheer, just instinct on it until finally he eventually decided, okay, screw this. I just watch you catch a 22-inch bass, weight like 7 pounds. Screw the live scope. I'm doing the same thing you're doing. And eventually he got more than me. So we got a little competitive there. But it goes to show you, it can ruin your fishing day. It can definitely ruin your fishing day if you are thinking that that's the only way you're going to want it. Having said that, look at what UN Minor has done. Broken Bow last season, where everybody not named Armando Sola was catching them on Broken Bow. I mean, everybody was just like, catch him on anything. But in order to catch the big ones, you really needed a forward-facing sonar, a live scope. And UN Minor, found his spot, got it on live scope, won the tournament. And that was the only way unless nobody had it. But that was really he really was an advantage with that. Take nothing away from your minor. Your minor is great no matter what. Even with live scope, he'd still be a contender for AOY and TOC champ. Then you take Rolando Nandin on Cattle Lake this year. He won it throwing that jerkbait on Cattle Lake. Yeah. Like, who does that? And there's a couple of people that did it, but he had this live scope, and he won. If it wasn't for the live scope, maybe he doesn't win it. But it really played. I don't want to say that's the reason why he won it. The reason why he's won it because Rolando Nandin is one of the best. But definitely the live scope gave him that edge to take him over the top and win the tournament. So it's going to get harder and harder as time goes by to be consistently win at tournaments if you don't have those equipment. But not to say you can't do it.
Yeah. I'll say I disagreed with all of it, really.
Really?
Yeah.
With everything that Christine Fisher said, or
Yeah, I think so.
really? All right, let me hear your take on it.
All right. Well, the first point is I think we've squeezed this year, especially, we've squeezed the people at the bottom, like Drew Gregory. People there that were just we've taken
That's a great point that I want to touch on too. That is, I got a lot to say about that, but go ahead.
national tournaments. We've it is impossible. It is impossible in a Hobie and a bass to fish it without a motor. You can't do it. It can't be done unless there happen to be a launch right by skinny water. It's almost impossible. Let's say that it would have to line up just right. So I think that's kind of number one is we've squeezed the people at the bottom. So whenever you're saying the people at the top have with a $20,000 kayak, which I have, not $20,000, but I got damn near, as the best you can get. I got a 180 with a torque, with a Newport, big battery, 9-inch graph. I'd like to get a second one day. I just started using Last Scope last time because I've been winning so much this year that I didn't even put it on a kayak until last tournament. And that's the first time I've ever fished with it. I fished with it the week before during practice, but I knew they were out. Some of them were out deep, out on points, and you know, main lake points, secondary points, things like that. So I knew that it would play and would be something that'd be valuable. So I did bring it and use it a little. But if you squeeze the people at the bottom, like I remember a guy up on what was it, like not Champlain, Cayuga or something like that, where he won throwing a Chapo, and it was him and Christine. I think they were both on show. She got like second or third, and this guy like turtled 2 or 3 times during a tournament in big waves, and he was seeing big smallmouth up in the waves because it was so bad, but he kept tipping over like it might even been a canoe, like a guy I'd never heard his name before, and maybe he listens now. I don't know. I forget his name. He wasn't somebody nationally known. So whenever you squeeze, and he definitely didn't have a motor, and he had like the least amount of tackle and gear,
And he won.
and he won. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I know. I know who you're talking about. Robin Van Time, I think he was the one who put on his. That was good. That he kind of was trolling Mike Iaconelli because Mike Iaconelli said it was gonna be one on largemouth bass, and he put the final, like not the kicker, but one of the fish that he posted. I think like the 6 biggest fish. He just posted it said Smalley's rules. I think it's.
Was it Ryan Van Tine? I didn't.
I don't know if it's Ryan Van something.
I think this was somebody else.
Von. Yeah, he was on. Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, because he was saying he could see the small bass in the wave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. I forgot the name, but yeah, I knew who you're talking about. Go ahead.
Well, whoever it was, like, you've squeezed those people out because now they don't have a motor, and there's no way you're going to tell me that people who don't have a motor, who don't have nice stuff, feel at a disadvantage. And to me, in my mind, they should. I have worked damn hard and have reinvested every single bit of money I have back into my fishing. Now I have great rods and reels. I have a great kayak, a great motor, a great graph. I have all these things. So to say that all those things aren't little advantages just aren't right. I mean, they are advantages. Now, whenever you're on the national level and everybody has that, like in the pros, Elite Series, MLF, all those guys, they have all the best stuff. So they're on a level playing field. But whenever you're playing in a weekend warrior and we don't have an elite kayak level tournament trail where it's invitation only and it's opens where anybody can fish it, those people at the bottom are going to feel squeezed. They just are. They just are. And I think saying that they've already, to me, like I disagree with that because I've been in that situation and it took me a long time to get to where the trailer, the tow vehicle, the whatever it is, everything I needed to perform at my highest level. I feel like I'm real close in my gear now. Maybe a second graph, but that's only because I just added live scope. I didn't want to add it before. So now I could see a need for a second one. So maybe that'll happen. But yeah, I think those people are at a disadvantage. If you have better line, one line is better than another. You know it. So you have an advantage, a better line. You add all these little advantages up and they become big advantages. That's the way the game works. I think you are right that it does bring more money into the sport because there's more people in the sport spending more money. The companies see that, therefore they want to put more money into the anglers, into sponsorships, whatever it is. You're right. But then that way of thinking has also brought things like the Elite Series that went from 150 horsepower to 250 horsepower. There was no need to ever do that. People just go further. It costs them more money. There was no need. It's obviously more dangerous. I've wrecked myself. I know how dangerous it is. So to say that they should have ever have went from a 150 to 250, that's the same perpetual growth thinking that's in our sport now. That's in still the Elite Series, but then now they can't put a 300 on there. It would be crazy. So like eventually there is a limit. When are we going to get to that limit? But we're obviously a long way from that. As more money comes into the sport, the gap in between people who don't have the sponsors or don't have the money on a weekend warrior level open tournament series, the gap is going to get further and further, which is what's happening now with more expensive kayaks, more expensive electronics, more expensive gear, and the regular paddle guy, which there's not many, obviously, that's a big gap, but the gap is widening. The gap has over this year and last year, and every year that gap is getting a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, and the people are feeling that squeeze. It's reasonable for them to feel that squeeze and to not take into account that there is a squeeze isn't being like Dave Mercer. I'll stop on this. Dave Mercer's podcast. I love that podcast. It's excellent. Just met him the other day at the Lay Lake Elite Series event. Took a picture with my kid. Nice enough guy. But every time he sounds almost like an elitist whenever he's saying that live scope, like he just rails on and on and on about live scope and how he can't see how there's an issue with live scope. There is an issue with live scope because it's not always at the elite level. That's the problem. Now everybody below that, where it's the high school kid, it's a person in a kayak, whoever it is, everybody down the line feels the pinch of the cost of our game going up. And it has. It has. Absolutely it has. Just in the last 5 years, it's went from, you know, $5,000-$6,000 being, maybe a little bit more being the top to more than double that in the last 5 years. Who was rocking a $10,000 kayak 10 years ago?
Nobody.
5 years ago.
By the way, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, let's say in the last 5 years, the amount of a top level kayak has doubled. For people at the bottom feeling the squeeze, it's difficult. And I can appreciate that. So that's it. Sorry.
So I want to kind of correct myself. It's Travis Van Newman is the one we're talking about.
There you go.
Travis Van Newman, he won the 2021 Hobie BOS at Link Champlain. I remember that story. Yes. So yes, Travis Van Newman.
What's up? What? Jamie? You did a little Jamie there.
What do you mean,
Joe
Jamie?
Rogan? Like that's his.
Oh yeah.
Jamie. Yeah.
So, okay. So my thoughts on that. That has not. And for those that are listening, I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying what I think is what's going on, and this is no reflection on person. On what I'm saying. It's no reflection on anybody. I have the utmost respect for everybody that competes, but
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
and
what,
this is just
yeah,
respectfully disagreeing.
yeah.
Like, I
The
feel like
reason,
we can have this. This is a conversation. It's not
yeah,
an argument. We can respectfully
yeah, no,
disagree
forget. So
between
I
us, Christine, whoever it is. So don't.
okay,
If somebody's watching this, like you're doing whatever. No, that's not what It's an open conversation about it.
yeah, we established that. Are you gonna let me talk now?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So
Ah,
that has nothing to do with live scope. That has more to do with, and again, not picking on anybody. I have the utmost respect for Drew Gregory. I have only admiration. I think he's one of the best, if not the best. The reason why, talking about what you're talking about has more to do with the rule changes because of what happening in Pickwick than live scope or anything like that. That's it. And that's really it. And to dive on that, and I think Drew is one of the best at it. And I think at some point he'll figure it out. But he has to adjust his game. But right now he's struggling. And we never figured. Drew Gregory has always. Drew Gregory won the AOY for the Hobie BOS on 3 events. He finished 3 events on the Hobie BOS when he won it, and then he went to the TOC, and with that he won the AOY. He didn't win the TOC; he won the AOY on 3 events, where people usually fish like you have to fish like 7 out of 10 just to give yourself a real shot. But the rules have changed, and it has changed because whether you agree with it or not, the way he interpreted the rules and what people were upset about, which was, I'm not going to dive into it, but basically he interpreted the rules one way. It came to a boiling point in Pickwick where a lot of people protested it, and then it kind of forced their hand in Bass Masters to say, okay, we need to clarify the rules here because this has gone on far enough, and it's affecting our sport, and there's a lot of people upset at this. Um, so the rules are the squeezing on the small guy, the quote unquote the Drew Gregory's, Travis Van Newman, who actually I believe Travis Van Newman has actually made a comment on and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I remember when the rules came out on the KBN podcast on the live show, they were talking about it, and I think it was Travis Van Newman that commented. It's like the same thing you're commenting. Like this seems like they're just catering to the people with the equipment and the sponsorship that and squeezing the small guy. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I respectfully disagree with Travis. It has to do with what took place in Pickwick and in not just Pickwick, years past. Like this was been something that had been festering for the last few years. Hobie BOS, AJ McWhorter kind of took care of it like behind closed doors. And for those that don't fish the national trails, you don't get wind of this. You have to fish the national trails to see what happens behind closed doors. You see, AJ and Hobie BOS didn't change the rules until KBF and Bassmaster, Steve Owens, Chad Hoover, and AJ all got together to streamline the rules. And it was actually Chad Hoover on his own Chad Hoover Fishing Podcast when they all three got together. He invited those guys. Chad Hoover, which I don't think was professional when he said that, but he himself said, "Oh, the new Drew Gregory rules." I don't believe he should have said that, but he said it. That's neither here or there. But it makes a point like these rules were put in place because of people were taking advantage of so-called gray areas, dark gray areas, as some people that I know refer to. And that's why the rule changes. And those rules, for those that don't know, means you can no longer launch from a creek 20 miles up where there's questionable, laydowns and stuff like that. Now you have to launch for the boat ramp, which if you don't have a motor, which in Hobie BOS you don't have a motor, and I don't know, maybe it's a scheduling conflict, but I haven't seen Drew Gregory fish this, and that may, I believe, in my opinion, I haven't talked to Drew Gregory about this, but I believe one of the reasons he's not competing anymore in the Hobie BOS, or at least I haven't seen him, is because it's a lot harder for him to compete when he has a paddle, not a pedal kayak. That, by the way, Crescent Shoaley is amazing kayak, one of the best kayaks designs out there, designed by himself. So credit to Gregory. But the reality, it's a skinny water kayaks. You can't, you're gonna throw that from a boat ramp and try to go up the creek where you now can't even get out of the kayak, and the rules have really defined what is accessible and what is and not is portaging, which goes back to what I'm saying. Those rules were put in right in this season, but AJ took care of that which makes AJ a great tournament director. AJ, for those that don't know, takes care of that in the captain's meeting. He never changed the rules. But when you go to the captain's meetings, he said all those things years past, in the last 2 years, that are now in place. So it didn't have that shock effect of like people saying, oh my God, they changed the rules. Well, if you've been on a Hobie BOS captain's meeting, AJ already had been doing this for the last 2 seasons, because this has been happening way before Pickwick. This just, the straw that broke the camel's back happened in Pickwick.
But they have annihilated his style of fishing. And this is where we disagree.
And he's struggling this season
because they could have done it with boundaries rather than ramps. That's where they need to change it next year, because they're not going to change it. They have taken away, and I'm not a paddle angler. They have taken away the paddle angler. They have taken away that game completely, taken it out of. It's gone.
Well, the reality is, and I'm not going to say you're wrong, because you're not wrong. They have. I don't think they're purposely doing it because of sponsorship and all that, or because we want the dollars for the the people. No, I don't think it is. I think it's because people were done with it. And Bassmaster, remember, before Steve Owens took over, Bassmaster was about to fold the kayak series, not the obviously the rest. But they were struggling to make 30 or 40. They weren't even approaching 100. The only ones that got more than 100 was Lake Fork at the beginning of the season. But
why could they not do boundaries? You're saying people are done with it. People weren't done with.
The problem with boundaries, and this goes back to, it leaves a lot of gray area. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong.
What gray area?
Because now, so now you draw a boundary. Okay, it's easier. It's easy when that boundary has a bridge. Like you see a creek and then you see a bridge. Okay, past that bridge, you can't go. As an angler, you're like, all right, I can't go past that bridge. But it bears, there may be some people that they catch past the bridge, catch it, paddle back, and then submit the fish. That's one of them. That it avoids that, which again, people find different ways to cheat.
Cheating is cheating.
Yeah, cheating is cheating, but it does.
They're going to cheat.
But the thing is, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm playing devil's advocate, just so people understand the other side. It's not that I'm saying you're wrong. It's not that I'm saying I disagree with you. I'm just telling you why that is, whether you agree or not. That's why that is.
That's not an answer.
But that's why it is.
That's not another side.
Well,
there's more.
Hold on. The other thing is, when there's a creek, there's no geographical reference. Okay, so now I'm fishing on a creek and they're saying, okay, you can only go up to, on the map, I say, okay, I can't go past this, but that red line is not drawn in the water, it's drawn in Google Maps.
But so you can tell within a few feet or 10 feet, like the boundary would be close enough to where no one would argue 10 feet either way.
But that's the thing. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I understand the director's point of view is like, now I have to draw an invisible boundary and assume that everybody, and some of these lakes have hundreds of feeder creeks. And depending on whether it's raining or not, it's rainy season or not, they may actually have more. And that boundary may not be as visible for some things. Now it brings to question, what if the boundary is half a mile up, but guess what? There was some rain, there was some erosion, and now between here and that boundary that's half a mile up, there is now a laydown that wasn't there when this map was drawn. And now it turns into like, well, wait a minute. The boundary is half a mile, so that means I can, I can portage through this. Well, no,
Yes,
you're not. So,
but that's fine as long as you still haven't said anything to me in my mind that prevents boundaries from being a
it's not.
thing we
It
should be
doesn't.
doing.
Nothing prevents it. I'm not saying. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong, Dan. Let me
Yeah,
again
I'm,
reiterate that. I'm just saying what the thought process is, and I'm
but
not a
but
tournament director
none of those are points to me.
to you or not, but you're a tournament director that now has to draw lines, imaginary lines. So, let's say, for example, Possum Kingdom. That's a perfect example. Launch from the boat ramp as far as you can go without portaging like the new rules say that it's switch. That's another thing. you know, that was another thing, what was portaging and what was not for because the Hobie BOS portaging was not a definition. Bassmaster Kayak Series portaging was another definition. That's a whole
But
that's a
why,
whole nother rabbit hole we can go through.
if there's a boundary, there's no. If
So,
there's a laydown, it doesn't matter. There's a boundary. You don't go past the
but the
boundary.
problem is,
But you see what I'm saying? You're saying, well, if you go from this launch and you do it, to you, it's reasonable in your head that going from this launch, by you saying that, you've already killed some people's game.
but the problem is some people, not pointing fingers because Drew Groger's not the only one, interpreted rules in a way that nobody else interprets it. And I'll give you an example. And again, I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just telling you what happened. I'm just saying what happened. When the whole thing of Pickwick happened, that was like I'm a great paddler that can go multiple obstacles that nobody else would probably go. Then maybe Jackson and Jeff Little. Maybe that's the only three that can go through that. The other two who can do that. So therefore, in my mind, that's accessible. So it means 20 miles up the creek is accessible because all those multiple laydowns, if I wanted to, I can go over them. But you never did. You never went over them. You just made a blank statement that in your head, in your opinion, that doesn't deter you from doing that. And that was the problem. Because now it becomes like, well, it all falls down to, well, it's accessible to me, but did you go through it? Did you access it through it? No, I didn't. Why not? Because it's accessible to me. Because in my opinion, I believe that I can go over those obstacles, even though it's pretty much dry land. So that in a nutshell, that's the nucleus of what the rule changes was. It's somebody saying that's not accessible to me. So what do you do then? Because you just put in the rules, well, it's not it has to be accessible. Well, my definition of accessible is different than Dan because Dan has a PA or Armando who's old and fat and no way can he paddle the same that I can. So that's where all these people got upset and said, no, we've had enough. We're going to protest this. And Bassmaster had to do something to save themselves. And
But no,
I'll say this is what collective, all these people got together because they realized this has now become a problem and it's going to get worse and nobody wins because now the legitimate winner is going to be questioned whether he's legitimate or not. And then there are people, I guarantee you there were people that were not going to fish the Bassmasters ever again until things changed.
You still have not set a problem that could not have been resolved with boundaries, and it would have saved the paddler.
It's just
Because at boundary, you can go all the way up to the boundary. If there's a launch behind something and it's within boundaries, like, okay, these laydowns are here now, but there's a launch behind, there's a public launch behind it, and the boundary is behind it, he could have went and fished it. because it's now open water up to the boundary. So it makes it easier for the tournament director because they don't have to be concerned about portaging, dragging, waiting, getting over laydowns or whatever it is. Here is a boundary, hard boundary. Don't go past this. Okay. You have now taken out the skill. Like, let's say there is no launch behind that, and Drew has to go over some logs. You've taken out a physical skill that this man of or Drew or Lance here, one of my buddies, or whoever it is, there's other people. There are other people who are not fishing national tournaments this year because of this. Yes, Bass has. They've. I don't think
they're more than.
I think Steve brought all the gravitas. People are going to fish bass because of Steve, and KBN's on board now. How many people are going from Hobie to KBN because Hobie to Bass? Because Steve's there, because now they know the platform that Bass has. They know it's going to be a good ran tournament, and they've got the backing of KBN. And they have the backing of me. Hey, I love Steve. AJ runs a great tournament too, both of them. But some paddlers are not fishing national trails because of this.
But
so there is a small bit of attendance that is down. But if there would have been a boundary, you could have saved the paddler. But you could have saved the paddler. Why is that not?
I know. I agree.
Not a problem for people.
I agree, but and I don't mean to sound cruel, but it's like the Jedi's. It's a dying culture, It's. I'm not trying to make fun of it, but it's true. When you think about it, when you go to a tournament, how many people do you see with a paddle, and how many people you see with a pedal or motor? I bet you, out of 200, you're gonna see like maybe 5 paddlers out there. Now,
not where I live. Not where I.
But we're talking about national tournaments.
Yeah, if somebody, it depends on where you live. So now you're taking, like, let's say people grew up on here fishing little creeks and rivers, and they learn to be a paddler, or they're a great paddler. You're taking away. You're getting people from the fishing side, not the paddling side, coming into the sport. So now you're limiting of a portion of people who would work like Drew or Lance or whoever.
Well, Drew's still fishing them.
Yeah. Well, you've obviously taken away his game. People have killed his game. It makes me. I'm not that great angler. It makes me sad.
If you're a great angler, and I believe Drew is, you'll find a way to adjust them.
But you have taken away every single bit. Drew will figure it out, and so
I believe so. I believe
I'm not saying that, but you've taken away his entire game. You've taken away his whole game. You've taken away the baits he throws, all braided line, all the rods he uses, the packs that he's made. You've taken away every single bit of his game. Now he has to adjust. Can he adjust? Drew will do it. Yeah, absolutely. But you've taken away his game. But you see what I'm saying? Like Bailey Eichbrett, excellent smallmouth guy. You've benefited him because you've taken away. I'm sorry. I'll let you talk.
No. Go ahead.
You've taken away. Now you've got the live scope guy, or the big water guy, the smallmouth guy, the whatever it is, the deep water guy. You've taken away the creek guy. You've taken away the creek guy. It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not a creek guy, so don't think this is in benefit of me, because it's not.
No, I understand.
I think it's hurt the sport. I truly do.
It was hurting bass. At the end of the day, Drew's style of fishing was hurting bass because, and I'm not pointing at Drew, and I'm not accusing Drew of anything. I said on the podcast that I recorded about Pickwick, and I hope people understand it. I don't think Drew is a cheater. I just think he interprets the rule in a way that it wasn't meant to be interpreted that way. That's my. Now,
you could have taken away the gray area with boundaries rather than.
But the problem is, here's the problem. At the end of the day, Bassmasters has to make a decision, a business decision. And the business decision is, this is going on. People, when you see 10 people protesting you, And 10 of the, remember, this is a trail that was close to averaging like 40 or 50, and now 10 of them, which is like, don't make me do math, but
It's
what 10%,
no,
like that's like 20% of your field that is investing on your trail is pissed off at
people
what's
were.
going on and are gonna say, I'm not coming back. You need to make some changes.
He exploited a gray area in the rules. You could have taken out the gray area and still made everybody happy and not killed the paddler.
But again, this was a collective effort from all angles. Like Steve
Not
Owen,
all anglers, no.
Steve Owen wasn't just sitting at the toilet and thinking, I'm pulling this out of my butt. This is a collaboration between Steve Owen, Chad Hoover, and AJ, and a lot of input from a lot of anglers saying this, this what we believe it needs to happen.
Who? What anglers?
Most of the anglers call for this.
Who?
Come
Who
on.
most? Who most?
Dan, it's
Did anybody ask? Did anybody ask Drew? Did anybody ask all the paddlers?
Oh, I don't know if they asked any. I'm assuming they got Drew's feedback. I'm sure they got Drew's feedback.
You're
but
sure?
yes,
I'm not sure.
There was
Are
a
you
meeting
sure?
between. There was
I'm glad you're
there,
sure.
there was a
I'm
meeting.
not sure.
I've talked to Steve Owen. There was a meeting between a bunch of the anglers that fish the Bassmaster Kayak Series and Steve Owens when Steve Owens got named, and they said, we want to see some changes to this.
I agree, a bunch. I don't know who those people are.
And I don't think we do, because I don't want to point names and say, oh, there's people that.
That's what I'm saying. Who was in the group? If you have 10 people who love to fish out deep, who are against the paddler, who it doesn't help their game, and you have one person who does, the bigger group, we still should have watched out for the paddler, even if it's 10-1. But even if it's a majority, you still have to watch out for that guy. You have to. This is our sport.
Drew Gregory has a motor on his kayak.
So he has to have a motor now.
Yeah.
He didn't before.
But he
still, before. On that ultralight, on the ultralight, he did not. Some of them he did, some of them he didn't, because of the amount of water he had to access.
I understand that when you have this is the way
I wasn't trying to make this a big thing.
No, but it's
I just really want to get the point across. I hope, not for my sake, I really hope they revisit the rules next year. I think
with the success, I'll tell you what, it's gonna get worse. And I don't have any inside information or anything like that. But if you pay attention, and again, maybe it's a conflict of scheduling. That's why Drew Gregory is not fishing the Hobie BOS. Maybe I haven't talked to Drew Gregory. I don't know. The point is, Drew Gregory is not fishing the Hobie BOS. At least he hasn't this year. My thought is he's not doing it because it really affects his game, because now he can't use a motor. So now he has to paddle a whole bunch to get to his spots.
His game. Yeah.
I think when you see Hobie's attendance going down this year, and I think more of it has to be the price. They jacked up the entry fee while Bassmaster stayed the same. And that has a lot of people saying, well, wait a minute.
I don't think
Bassmaster is still $250. Why did you went up to $260 something plus the other fees?
Matter. Come on.
It does. Yes,
you believe $10, $15 is a big deal? Whenever you're less than 10% of the cost of
it. It builds up. I'm the one. I mean, I'm on the side of like, well, wait a minute. I used to fish only Hobie BOS. I didn't fish the Bassmaster because I thought it was run horribly. That was before Steve Owens, by the way. And now I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Do I really want to spend that much on Sam Rayburn when I can fish the Possum Kingdom? Because sometimes you have a budget. And you're like, okay, well, I love Hobie.
But $20 ain't making a difference.
It does in the long, especially if you fish if you're competing for AOY. If you're fishing
$100.
It does add up.
Over the 5,000.
The point is, people are saying, well, wait a minute. Why are you justify me? Why are you charging me more when Bassmaster is charging less? Now, I'm not saying
you were the payout. You were the one who were complaining about payouts a year ago and went on about the payouts whenever the payouts for Hobie are so much better than they are.
No, I didn't no. Wait, let me correct that, because I did pivot on that about 2 years ago.
I remember having these shows.
Yeah, no, I pivot on that because I thought the Bassmaster paid out to less. But I understand, like my point of view now, the way I pivoted now is I understand Bassmaster is a tournament organization which they make money by hosting tournaments.
Yeah,
Hobie is a manufacturing company which uses its tournaments to
as
promote
advertisement. Yeah,
to as an advertising agent that is self-sustained.
that's right.
So that goes the other things like why waste the price? And there could be uh good reasons for it. I don't know the dynamics. I don't know if the financials, maybe inflation, because it's a manufacturing company, inflation affects them more than it would affect Bassmaster Cactus, which I'm sure it's gonna affect it. I don't know the ins and out of that much. But remember, consumers don't care about that. They just care about you jacking up the price. Why? If nobody else is jacking it. I think that's part of it.
I don't think that's the thing.
The other thing is a lot of people like Duguri are not a lot of people. I think people like Duguri are saying, well, wait a minute. If I can't don't have a motor, I don't want to have all that job. So I think, and I have no inside information, but I believe Hobie BOS either this year or next year at some point, they're gonna go into motors.
Yeah,
That's gonna change, I believe, if they
I,
want to compete with
yeah,
Bassmaster.
I think so too. The well, I mean, they've only increased in people. Well, this is just guessing. They've increased in people every year
Not
to
this
have
year.
huh? Yeah,
Not
that's what I'm saying. They've always went up. There was no need change. Now that things have tapered off or went down a little bit, then I'm sure he'll readjust some next year for the rules. Maybe that's adding motors, whatever it is. But it's so funny because I think 2 years ago somebody posted something in KBN like which trail should I don't know, something like that, and everybody was Hobie, 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 and then I was like the one person that said I think Bass has a bigger platform, and that
yeah.
people who win those events can it's better for sponsors. I've never won one. I cashed a check in the two I fished. So I don't yeah. So I mean it hadn't affected me, so I can't tell you from firsthand. It was just my perception that winning a Bassmaster event would be bigger with sponsors than it would be a Hobie. Although Hobie at the time was running a better trail. And I got like laughed off KBN on that post, like, oh, you're an idiot. The fuck are you talking about? I'm like, and now it's like everybody's come over to that, like, oh, okay. I get this now.
Well,
Like, yeah,
I agree with. I remember you on that post, and I agree with the sense if you're like Drew Gregory, who makes a living out of this, but that's like what a 1%, no, not
yeah.
like a 5-10% of the population. That yeah, but most people would rather no, give me the $45,000 check. I don't need sponsors if I'm getting a $45,000 check. Whether
4,500. Yeah.
4,500, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no.
No,
45 for
4,500,
TLC. Yeah. Yeah.
45,000, yeah, the
Yeah.
TOC versus the Bassmaster Cactus, which was only paying 20%.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, what good other sponsorships if, you know, for a trail that was struggling mightily. So I think now, now it's more of it's just because the Steve-O effect, he runs it really, really
Yeah.
well.
Oh, I think so too. Sorry to
Man.
get heated, man.
No, but I mean, I
I
get
just,
it.
I'm so, I really am really, I really hope they would change. They would reevaluate that. I'm not
I
trying to bring this back up. I'm just saying, I don't think that the answer that they have now this year is the right answer because of the people who have taken a lifetime to learn a certain way to fish, and now you've killed that, and it's not right. Like I can lament in that even if the rule doesn't change, I could like we went from one last year to this year, and that was a big change. So it's maybe this is like the episode where it's like the epitaph of here lies the paddler, like here's their tombstone, and now they're finally dead, and
I
that's sad. I I'm sad about that passing.
I think I don't disagree with anything you said. I do believe this. If you just, not you, but people that are listening, people that are paddlers, if you just enjoy fishing, because you can join a tournament. Fishing, if you enjoy kayak fishing, just because you're doing a tournament and you do want to do a paddle, then you're in the wrong. That's the wrong reason to love this sport. If you love paddling and you love like Texas River Junkie here in Texas, a lot of respect for that guy. Manny Barela, Skinny Bar, the Boys TV, and all that. Those guys enjoy fishing so much, and I love watching their content on social media and on YouTube. They don't need a tournament to enjoy it. So if that's the way you enjoy it, just enjoy it that way. You don't need to win a check. You don't need to win a tournament
You're
to
telling
enjoy
them
it.
to give up?
No, I'm saying to give up. I'm just saying, like,
what about Eric Jackson, the Olympic paddler? What tournament has he won this year?
He doesn't compete in tournaments. The KBF.
He's fishing in that US thing or whatever it is. But I'm saying you've killed his game, like a lifetime of paddling experience. And that dude used to win some tournaments enough to where he went and fished on the pro level. I mean, that was different. He could obviously fish. But I remember being on Seminole and that dude had an Apex, like right whenever they come out. He was damn near had that thing up on plane.
Yeah.
Like going across the water up on that Apex without a motor, just getting it, just paddling. But you have like you have taken his, like, whatever's, like, let's say people have skill levels in all his different categories. He was a 10 in paddling. You have taken away that category for him.
It all boils down to people felt like there was some shady stuff going on up in those creeks, and things needed to be policed. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. That's the reason why it all come down to, like, there's some shady stuff going on, and we feel that there's some cheating when you get, the reality is, then whether we like it or not, whether we live it or not, somebody up, and I'm not accusing anybody, I'm not saying anybody did this, but when you're up a creek and nobody, 20 miles up from the tournament waters, with nobody policing you, there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't believe that Drew Gregory cheated. Let me just explain that. Drew Gregory did nothing to cheat. I'm not calling him a cheater. I'm just saying that opens the door when you have $10,000 on the line on a tournament. That opens the door now to other people to say, I can actually go 10 miles up a creek when nobody is and get away with some stuff that, whether is putting fish on a string or moving fish with much.
If people I don't like that argument, because people are going, like, you're saying that people can't do that because they might. Yeah, like if you would have had a hard boundary, a lot of people wouldn't have complained about Russ winning the KBF National Championship
last year.
It's the same thing. It should have been a hard boundary.
Well, a lot of people complain because they opened that part of the lake, but too late. But
even Hoover said that he wouldn't have allowed the boundaries to be that far. If there was a hard boundary beforehand, it wouldn't have been an issue. It just, I
think it's, unfortunately, there is, how do you call this?
There's an imperfection in any sport with the rules. It's always going to be difficult. But I think there was a fork and we took the wrong fork, and I hope somebody tries the other fork.
As long as the attendance keeps growing, it's not going to change. And, going from 40 to 50, 50 anglers to 200 anglers, 125 on this one. That's what, like almost 100%, more than 100% increase in their attendance. That's not going to change. Unfortunately, that's not going to change.
Just because you're making millions of dollars doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. You're not killing.
When you're a tournament organization,
you're not killing people with your product.
Oh,
like, I'm gonna make a cookie that kills motherfuckers, but I'm gonna get rich off it.
What's up with all the cursing? I thought.
Sorry, I'm a cursor. Sorry, man. But that's like it doesn't, just because you're making more money, attendance is growing, doesn't mean it's the right thing.
Oh, I agree with you. But for the people that are writing the checks, whatever brings in, covers the checks. That's what we're going to do.
Right thing's the right thing. Let's do the right thing here.
But okay,
I'm never going to paddle a creek in the national tournament. But I hope they change.
This is my opinion on this. Let me ask you
Uh,
this: if the vast majority of the people feel a certain way, why do you believe? Just rhetorical question. Why do you believe it's the right thing to do the opposite of what they believe?
it's the
If the
same thing
vast
as
majority,
the United States, like our Constitution. I believe burning the flag is wrong.
of course,
If you burn the flag in front of me, we're going to have a problem.
yeah. Why do you have to go that analogy?
But I love the Constitution allows someone to burn the flag because that's their right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech. They have the freedom to do that. I don't like it. The majority cannot always rule because it suits the majority. Sometimes the right answer is the tough one, is the one that we have to fight for. We got to fight for the paddler. We got to fight to keep that a part of our sport, to keep our roots, to keep us what differentiates us from bass boats. We cannot let the mob rule because it benefits them. And I'm saying this from the perspective of someone who will never paddle a national tournament. Save the paddler. Not for me, but for America.
Wow, I'm expecting an eagle to come up behind you now.
Oh!
Man, you went all like John Wallace from what was that movie? Mel Gibson?
The Patriot?
Not the Patriot. The other one.
Braveheart.
Braveheart.
Yeah.
They'll never. They may take out
freedom.
They may take our paddles, but they'll never take our freedom.
Hey, actually, one of my ancestors was the guy who ran the castle that Robert the Bruce was born in. So there you go. Like the guy who became the King of Scotland after, that betrayed William Wallace and then eventually combined all the clans and defeated Longshanks, or defeated his son. Yeah. Scottish history. It's part of
I think we lost about half our listeners just
well,
right there.
no, like I trace my lineage. I'm also way back, like a third cousin of Winston Churchill. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anything's
Yeah,
possible in Alabama.
Alabama.
You're
No, we both came from the Clan Carruthers, the borderland north of York, and Dumfriesshires, Scotland, like a county, and he was also a Carruthers back in his genealogy.
We just went down the ancestry.com rabbit hole.
Right,
I don't know how we got there.
My bad. All right. Let's go. All right. Well, we appreciate y'all listening. Please, hopefully you tune in again one day.
Yeah.
If you're a paddler,
we accomplished nothing on this episode other than piss off people on both sides.
Hate mail all over this one. So
this is probably the worst episode we've ever recorded.
we can respectful again. This is a respectful disagreement argument, not like it's okay. We can disagree.
Yeah,
it's
no,
okay.
for real. And again, I don't disagree with you. I'm just trying to play devil advocate and kind of explain why the rules are. And again, this is not just to close, and this is not a shot on anybody, much less Drew, who he's been on this podcast. I have the utmost respect for Drew as a person, as an angler. Like I'll say it on in every episode that we talk about this. I don't think he cheated or anything like that. I just think he interpreted the rules in a way that just made a lot of people mad. A lot of people felt that it was unfair, the way those rules are interpreted, and that led to what we have now, for better or worse.
All these Creek guys that I know interpret the rules the same way he does. It's a part of their game and how they see. I'm not trying to start this back up. I'm trying to end the show, trying to put a bow out. I'm saying he is not.
You're gonna end this right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of people feel that same way. So it's not just a Drew thing. It's that paddlers Creek culture people, which most of us, including myself, don't understand, because there's a lot of things that they would do that I would see on the other side of the gray, but it doesn't mean it is if there's gray. The wrong is the gray, not the person that interprets the gray differently than what I do. The problem is the gray. If we can fix the gray with saving the paddler, let's do that.
There's
I think
always
we can do that.
there's always going to be people pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always going to be, and I do agree. Maybe boundaries would be. I just don't see it happening. I think it's a lot too much work, and then it opens up. The geographic of that lake could change in an instant after a heavy flood or severe downpours. Then
Boundary's
before
a
you got
boundary.
it, that it could. It
Boundary's a
just
boundary.
it is, but it changes, and it's hard. It's hard when the boundaries you can't see. You don't have that red line on the water, and not every. How many? It's not an excuse, but it's harder when you're like, okay, does the line end here or it ends there? Because there's no breach on this creek. There's no geographical reference. It's just an imaginary line. So, am I drawing the line here or 5 feet away? And if I paddle here, can I bring it?
Yeah, but within 5 feet is reasonable. We also have GPS. We all have GPS coordinates,
which can be edited, by the way.
We can do that. We can put a GPS pin. If you're going in this creek, here's the coordinates for where that's at. I can put a pin in my deal.
And that's the other thing. Remember, there's lakes out there, Possum Kingdom. They had to extend. I will say this, and I hope Steve Owens fixes this. And no shit on Steve Owens. I don't understand why on day one, and Steve Owens is a lot smarter than me, has a lot more experience than me. So whatever explanation it has, I'm sure it's right. I just don't know it. It doesn't make sense to me. But I'll say this. I don't understand why on a 2-day tournament, on day one, you have to submit your fish on a lake that has hardly any signal anywhere. 30 minutes after lines out. To me, that is ridiculous. It is a 2-day tournament. There's no reason for people to stop fishing, get out of the water an hour earlier so they can hop on their car, drive out of the state park, and try to find a signal. It happened on Lake Caratu. It's day one of a 2-day tournament. Let it submit. I mean, if you can tell the difference of when they caught it at 3 o'clock or at 3:01, it doesn't matter if they have to submit the fish at 3:30 or 5:30. Give them the break. And even on day 2, you can do better than just 30 minutes.
But see, isn't that the same? Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. But I will say this. If you don't change the rules to make it more friendly at paddlers, don't you think it's leaving the door open for like Drew or someone else to bring back a river bass series that's going to take from Hobie and take from bass? Yes.
No, and I'll tell you why. And again, I'm just going by the numbers. I don't disagree with you on your argument. I'm just looking at. We have to both look at it from the same different point of view, because otherwise we're not gonna. There's no point in having a debate if we both look at it the same way. When you look at how many people on the water fishing do you see in a paddle, out of 200 field, you're gonna see maybe 10. That's a small number. So things are going to be catered to whatever the people, to the highest population of anglers. So if let's say they open a river trail, out of those 10 anglers, I don't know, maybe 5 will swim squid. I'm just going to go with a paddle kayak, and the other 5 says like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm going to fish river bassing trail hosted by Drew Gregory, which I would recommend if he did. It worked out great a long time ago when he started doing it. Is that really going to put a ding in the assistance? No, because the sport is going to keep growing. And more people are going to switch to paddles. Less people go to river trails. And that's the other thing. You go up, you decide, okay, let's go to creek fishing. Well,
it's not
how many people can you fit on a creek?
That's just it. It's not just creek fishing. It's river bass series that would be on a place where it would cater to both the paddler and to the regular guy, to the lake guy. It does both. If you've taken away the paddle guy in this series and this series and this series, you've left a big door open for the paddler and everybody else. Like
That's a good point. That's a good
yeah,
point.
like it doesn't have to just be the creek guys. Yeah, they might be 1 out of every 10, but you can have everybody. You've taken away a portion. Yeah. All right. Sorry.
I would say take out the motors. Just leave out the motors. Pedal. Honestly, I'd be better.
Yeah, but you can't do that with launches.
Nah.
Not for paddlers. All right. All right.
It was a
That's
fun.
it.
It was a fun episode. We not accomplish anything other than piss off people on both sides.
Yeah. Sorry, people. Hey, you're cussing now. Quit that. All right.
Piss off? Is that cussing?
Piss. Yeah.
You know,
piss
my
off.
wife gets upset at me all the time because I'm from Puerto Rico. I learned English on cable TV. So she's like, you can't say that. I'm like, I saw it on a TV show that was on like ABC and NBC.
They
So I
cuss a
think
lot
that's
more now.
yeah. So
Ass
I'm just
and-
like, you know, I don't like the F words and all that I'm not
Yeah.
supposed to use, socially acceptable, which now it is kind of thing. I still don't use it because I don't know.
I use it for effect.
Yes. To
Yeah.
talk about paddlers.
Paddlers. All right. I have paddler friends. That's why.
And again, I don't hate the paddlers. I love them.
You hate the paddlers.
I know. I love paddlers.
No, you
And people who listen to my podcast know that I've been on the last few months talking about how I need to get a skinny water kayak with paddles. So I'm with you guys. With you. I just think that whenever there's that much money on the line, you need to put rules to protect the integrity of the sport. Same way you don't play the same basketball in the YMCA club than you do on a National Basketball League, because there are rules that have to be in place to protect when there's that much money around.
But
on
a basketball court, there's borders around the court, not just places you can.
I'm just
shoot
in
from.
essence. I'm just trying to.
not just launches you can shoot from. There's an actual.
You don't have
border
to.
Around it.
You don't have to nitpick it at an
Well, I'm
atomical
just
level.
saying, if you're going to prove my point, I'm with your analogy. I'll go with it. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see y'all next week.
Take care, everyone.
Do I have to hit
end
goodbye or
recording?
something? Don't I hit something? All right. Yeah, that's it. All right. I don't have to hit anything. All right. I'm a terrible podcaster. Later.